Hi, everybody. We are in the studio at TEDx Beacon Street. Jenny Johnson has just come off the stage from her talk. She's an Emmy Award-winning TV host. She co-hosts Dining Playbook with Billy Costa on Nessun, and she is sitting down with us today after her talk. So thank you so much for being here.
So nice to be with you, Carissa.
So I found your talk particularly impressive because, you know, your daughter, Vienna, is so young and having to deal with those food allergies and those big changes when you say you're a professional foodie by nature. You literally get paid to eat things and talk about it, which is super lovely. How did you start to kind of manage her diet as you were seeing those allergies appear and you were trying to figure out how to manage them and make sure that she was living, you know, the best life she could? What kind of research were you doing?
Yeah, so it was most certainly a big process through every level, whether it was just seeing that her skin was not well, recognizing that there was something as simple as a pea that would be able to send her into anaphylaxis. So it was a very confusing time, most certainly as a new mom, and brought about a certain level of sort of regular anxiety, I would say, in throughout our home. And so I think at one point I sort of had to take a step back and recognize that Vienna was going to need to eat. We need to eat to survive. And I had to figure out what some of the things were that at the basic level were going to help her. And so that research came from a number of different places. I now knew what the top allergens were. So we now, through research, can tell that there's a top 20 list of things that children could potentially have triggers to. And so we stayed away from the majority of those. That being said, we also learned ways to introduce things to Vienna that would ultimately do no harm. And so really the focus for me was firstly about making sure that she was in a calm state, that her body was in a calm state. I know that her body was in a calm state because she wouldn't have an eczema flare.
There were no signs.
So you started learning how to read her. And mostly what we did was we sort of stuck with things that we knew were working, but we knew were things that didn't have anything else added that could be of worry.
So it was a lot of basic level of foods?
Yeah, so there's a book, Nourishing Traditions, that became a really helpful one for me, that sort of talked about the way that we ate as an ancient society. And really that became sort of the mindset for me, is we've changed the way we eat over the past however many generations. And so my goal was to really get back to an ancestral way of eating.
Well, it's the most basic form of, your body processing the foods, the natural ingredients it's given. And obviously that's been super complicated today with processed foods and chemicals and all of those things. So now that, you're kind of on this new diet with her, what are some of the things that she's eating right now that you might not expect to be on a 1-year-old's plate?
Well, there's a lot of them. Okay, so for one, she eats chicken liver a few times a week. So
a delicacy.
It's so interesting because I say that to people and it's kind of like, ugh, like your initial reaction is like, I will tell you, it's delicious. And it is the most nutrient-dense piece of an animal that you can ever eat. So because it's just so packed full in a way that the rest of the animal really isn't. And so chicken liver is something that she eats. She eats fermented foods. I do homemade bone broth with the chicken liver and a chicken soup. At first, it felt really daunting because it was like, oh, when is there enough time in the day to do all of these things?
Until I make all these things from scratch.
Until I actually implemented it, and I realized it really doesn't take that time, that much time. It just requires adding that to be a part of your routine.
Once you get into a groove and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so fermented foods. She does cod liver oil as something that is really a basis of fundamental health. But I knew that the nutrients needed to be well absorbed. What I learned was that oftentimes we take supplements, and those supplements just go right through your body.
They're going right through.
They don't touch the tentacles and the little places that it needs to get.
They're not nourishing in the way we would think and hope that they were nourishing.
Exactly. So it really had to be that we were giving the most dense pieces of this nutrients that we possibly could for her.
Any things that you are still having trouble getting her to eat? And she's a 1-year-old.
Funny. Yes. So unfortunately her diet is pretty limited still at this time because we're very cautious about adding anything. So she's never had anything with an additive. She's never had anything with a preservative as of yet. that. But those are things that will come.
For sure.
So I think that sometimes she's a normal kid.
Right.
The Brussels sprouts are not her favorite.
Really?
But
I love a Brussels
I
sprout.
do too.
So like that's hard for me.
I do too. But what we learned was that children, if they're hungry, are going to eat.
Right,
okay?
absolutely. That's very
sometimes
true.
what we did, instead of taking away the Brussels sprouts, we'd start with the Brussels sprouts. Now she might get fussy and she
She'll get through 'em.
might throw them on the ground for a couple times. But if we keep bringing them back and she's hungry,
like, you know
she's
what?
gonna eat them.
Let me just eat these Brussels sprouts.
That's been another lesson that's come from it because I kept saying there's only a few things you can eat. I got to make sure that you're eating them all.
You gotta eat this.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you said, those things will come with things with additives. As you're introducing things to her, you know, her system is more stable. You've kind of completely overhauled her diet. As you're introducing things as a mother, do you still have those moments of fear or anxiety or stress when you're giving her something new?
Truth is, I think as a parent, there will always be anxiety and fear.
Right. It's like a built-in part of the job.
I think exactly. It's this new part of me that I didn't quite know could exist at the level that it does.
And yet, here it is.
Yes, right. Most certainly here it is. So the short answer is yes. But I am working with a woman who created something called Allergy ART, Allergy Release Technique, which is a bunch of different methodologies that's ultimately aimed at lowering inflammation in the immune system.
Right.
So in concert with the diet, I'm working with a woman who has thousands of children eating freely. Kids that were just like Vienna, who, I mean, Vienna's allergies to start: gluten, soy, dairy, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, peas, sesame.
My goodness,
She's had kids that are this severe who now eat whatever they want.
It's such a blessing, and it must be such a science
Certainly.
as well.
So she takes away so much of that fear from me because she's taught me and showed me that there's going to be a day when Vienna's going to eat freely.
Absolutely. And so great to have an ally like that in this process that can be
certainly.
scary and daunting. It could be a lot, I'm sure. So how has it changed what you're eating? You said you're more thoughtful about what you're putting in your body. You have your whole show, Dining Playbook. Has that changed the way you're eating, even for your job?
It's changed the way I'm eating. It's changed the way I'm talking to a lot of the chefs and the restaurateurs. It's changed the message that I'm putting forth in the program and in my day-to-day conversations with people. Yeah, my menu has totally changed. You know, in some ways, I was a vegan for a long time.
Right.
Veganism is not something that I personally think makes sense for me. Now the thing is, I don't ever want to tell somebody that this is the diet you should follow, this is not the diet you should follow. It's different for everybody. It's so different for everybody. But I have learned fundamentally there are certain things that our bodies need to thrive.
Absolutely.
And so it's about constant dialogue. And it's about talking to a lot of these restaurateurs who you know, who in some ways, you know, in the beginning had to sort of roll their eyes at all of the allergies. They didn't. I mean, chefs are some of the most genuine, wonderful human beings, but it was a change for them.
It's
they
an
had to
evolution in the way they prepare their food, the way they're interacting with the people who are consuming that food. It's complete change, I'm sure.
It has been totally different.
Right.
But what it has done, it has changed the dialogue for all of us. And so I'm having that conversation as opposed to, so what's on the meal for Saturday night? You know, it's just a different way of thinking about things and asking things and learning things. And they're open to that too. They're open to hearing, God, there's a little kid who came into the world that's supposed to be just a thriving, healthy kid, because that's what we're meant to be, right?
She's just living her best life.
Exactly. that came into the world with all these problems. So let's take a look at a bigger picture of what that's about.
And how they can be part of the solution as well.
Yeah. Luckily, the chefs are the ones who are creating the food that is nourishment.
Right.
It's more of the processed foods and the artificial flavorings and sort of that bigger, scarier supply chain picture that is really hurting our immune systems.
Absolutely. Well, we are so happy that little Vienna is happy and healthy and doing her best, and that she has you to kind of help her along that journey. We really appreciate you coming to sit down with us and kind of give you a little bit more of your story.
Thank you, and you obviously have a good sense of what all of these important things do. So I hope you're going to continue that conversation too.
I will.
So thank you, Chris.
Why I'm here. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back with our next speaker later.